guys, Kristen from Anime Collective. So horror is one of my all-time favorite genres no matter what medium I'm experiencing in, from films to novels to manga. Here's a quick look at some of my horror favorites so you can get a glimpse of what I'm into. There's a little bit of everything on this list. I read anything and everything in horror, so there's everything from psychological to body horror to sci-fi horror to name a few. That all said, here are some of my favorite horror manga I think you should check out. Alright, so I want to get what is probably the most obvious recommendation out of the way first. You can't have a horror manga video without Junji Ito. Uzumaki is an absolute staple of the genre, and it follows the story of a young girl as she and her family become increasingly obsessed with spirals. The spiral phenomenon affects their town, causing people to disappear or die. Out of all of Junji Ito's works, Uzumaki is my absolute favorite. The series showcases how one can spiral into madness well. It's full of drama and suspense, and it focuses more so on the psychological horror side. His creepy, highly detailed art style is something to behold as well. To me, Uzumaki is more disturbing than it is scary. That being said, it is one of the most unsettling reads in this video, and has great characters like Kiri and Shuichi, to name a few. It's hard to talk about Uzumaki without giving too much away. All I can say is that this manga is in a class of its own when it comes to horror. It's extremely weird and messed up, but at the same time very original at storytelling and art style. If you're looking to get into more of Junji Ito's works, I recommend checking out Tomi, Censor, Gyo, and Shiver. These, in addition to Uzumaki, are some of my favorites by Junji Ito. I'll do a future video highlighting all of his series, but for now, I highly recommend checking out Uzumaki, especially if you're new to his series. Next is Parasite by Hitoshi Iwaki, which has some of the most horrifying alien designs I've ever seen, but it also has some of the most effective body horror I've ever witnessed in a manga. Something about the way the aliens pop out through people's heads and their grotesque forms really stick with you, but even more so than that is the fact that they still have somewhat of a human form, albeit a twisted one that stuck with me most. Parasite tells the story of Shinichi Izumi, who's your everyday average high school student. His life changes forever one day when an alien creature called a parasite invades his body. Somehow he manages to prevent it from infesting his entire body though, containing it only to his hand. No longer the same with his hand under the control of a murderous alien named Miggy, he will have to face this new reality head-on. Others who have been infested by parasites have not had much luck and have been taken over by these otherworldly beings. Their bodies now host under the control of the parasites, who morph their bodies any way they please into horrifying visions and use their bodies to hide within the crowd as humans. It's a series that was released over 30 years ago and is still highly influential and loved to this day. It's a sci-fi horror classic that has withstood the test of time and is without a shadow of a doubt one of the best released so far. You can currently collect the manga via the singles released by Kodansha or the Parasite Full Color Collection. I have a video comparing the two on the channel if you'd like to check it out. It's no secret by now that Berserk by Kentaro Miura is my favorite manga of all time. And while it's more so a dark fantasy, its pages are full of horror, so it's one that horror fans are sure to enjoy. It features some of the best manga panels and artwork I've ever seen, but it also has one of the best stories in all of manga as well. Berserk is a story about so many things: human nature, struggle, one's own will versus their destiny, the sacrifice we make for others, but also those we make for ourselves, and so much more. It's set in a brutal world that's plagued by war, and our main character Guts is quite literally born into it. Later on in the Golden Age arc, he joins a mercenary group called the Band of the Hawk that's led by Griffith, a charismatic leader. This is the arc where themes take off in the story, but this of course is a dark fantasy, so something happens later on that changes everything for Guts, and the story develops in a way that continuously keeps you invested. This is also where the story begins to feel more like horror as well. While Kentaro Miura's artwork is beautiful, it is also extremely brutal to witness at times. Even though it's bloody and gory, the story always remains front and center. Everything in this manga serves a purpose, and the violent moments are never there to just shock and awe you, although they will at many times do just that. The panel when Guts and Griffith first meet Zod still gives me chills to this day. It's just a masterpiece through and through, and I highly recommend it to any manga fan, no matter what genres you are into. You can currently collect Berserk via the singles or the Berserk Deluxe editions released by Dark Horse. Tokyo Ghoul is one that often appears in best of videos, and rightfully so, as one of my all-time favorites. It challenges the black and white narrative of good versus evil and plunges us into a world where these lines blur. At its heart is our main protagonist, Kaneki, a regular kid who's thrust into the nightmare's intersection of the human and ghoul worlds. The horror isn't just in his transformation though, but in his realization that he now craves human flesh, with every familiar face, including friends, looking and smelling like food. Beyond his internal struggle with his ghoul instincts and the looming presence of a darker self, the world of the ghouls introduces Kaneki to factions with sinister tastes like the gourmets that add even more darkness to the series. As the story unfolds, the horror elements become more prevalent, making it an unforgettable read. If you enjoy Tokyo Ghoul, be sure to check out its sequel, Tokyo Ghoul Re. The series is available as single volumes, a box set, or the Barnes& Noble exclusive Tokyo Ghoul Monster Editions. Up next is Blom by Tsutomu Nihei, and it is unlike anything I've ever read. The journey centers around Killy and his relentless search for the net terminal gene and the allies and threats he faces along the way. Diving into a blend of sci-fi action and horror, you are immersed in a cyberpunk world where the story is told more through art than words. This isn't your typical dialogue-heavy manga. It's a testament to Tsutomu Nihei's talent that he can evoke so much emotion and depth through visuals alone. The designs of the Silicon Life are as breathtaking as they are terrifying to witness. I sometimes felt echoes of H.R. Geiger's art from the Alien universe, especially with those intricate biomechanical touches. The sense of isolation in Blom's world only added to its disquieting vibe. Blom is not just about the visuals, though. Tsutomu Nihei's portrayal of a desolate and haunting world and how he makes the structure feel so expansive struck me the most. You can feel the isolation of this world, and that in itself is unsettling. You can collect Blom's manga via the singles or the Blom Master Editions released by Vertical. If you'd like to learn more about the series, check out my in-depth review of Blom. Dorohedoro is a dark series that doesn't necessarily feel like one. Despite it being chock full of gruesome fights, blood and carnage, and messed up developments, you still feel warm and fuzzy while reading, thanks to the dynamics between the characters and its sense of humor, which, while dark, lightens the mood of the series. Later on, though, the series' tone changes, so while it's a fun read, it's dark as well, thanks to the world and the issues these characters have to overcome. The story is about Kaiman, whose head has transformed into a lizard head and has no memories of his past. He teams up with Nikaido, the owner of a small restaurant called the Hungry Bug, to find the sorcerer who did this to him and get revenge. Along the way, they meet other characters in this strange world they live in called the Hole. But later on, the story expands to the sorcerer's world, which opens this story up to a new world of possibilities. Dorohedoro is an incredibly weird and lovable series that's funny because of its dark humor and over-the-top violence. It has a lot of fun nods to horror, including the Night of the Living Dead and more. The art style is unique from any other manga I've read before too, which makes it stand out even more than it already does. On top of all that, it has some of the best characters in all of manga. For these reasons and more, it is one of my top series of all time, and I hope you'll check it out. Homunculus by Hideo Yamamoto, the mind that also brought us Ichi the Killer, is one of the best psychological horror series. Seven Seas recently began releasing Homunculus with English translation in an oversized omnibus format. I love Homunculus because it feels very much like my favorite Japanese horror movies, and I appreciate its more nuanced approach to horror. The story follows Susumu Nakoshi. One day he's in a lavish hotel, the next he's living in his car. He's approached by the mysterious Manabu Ito, a 22-year-old medical student who says he's a perfect candidate for his experiment. He initially rejects his offer, but later accepts it when his car is towed and he's in need of cash. In exchange for 700,000 yen, Nakoshi lets Ito drill into his head via a method called trepanation. At first, everything seems normal for Nakoshi following this experimental surgery, but this all changes when the effects kick in and he begins seeing the homunculus in every person. Watching Nakoshi undergo this experimental surgery is a horror in itself, but it's the after effects of the surgery and the distorted humans that Nakoshi now sees that are the most unsettling. It's hard to know what's real or not in this one too as you're reading, so there is an element of mystery to the series as you work to understand what's happening to Nakoshi as he's trying to understand what is going on as well. You feel like you're in the story with Nakoshi as a result, and it has a lot of weight too. Blood on the Tracks by Shuzo Oshimi, the creator of The Flowers of Evil, Happiness, and Inside Mari, is one of the best psychological thrillers I've ever read. It's unsettling as well as eerie, and if you put yourself in the MC's shoes, it's a truly terrifying read. Thanks to the chain of events that occur in this series, it gets creepier and creepier as it goes on, but the art further sets its dark tone. Blood on the Tracks is about a relationship between a boy named Seichi and his mother Seiko. But they don't just have any ordinary relationship, she loves him so much she will do anything to keep him to herself and protect him, even if that means doing the most heinous and unthinkable things. Their extremely toxic relationship prevents Seichi from living his life because there are no lengths his mother won't go to keep him under her grasp. You wish for Seichi to break out of this terrible relationship, which is ruining his friendships and preventing him from living a normal life. Throughout the chapters, it's easy to question how someone could become so easily controlled by their mother, but Oshimi does an incredible job at explaining the how and why behind a toxic mother-son relationship. To me, Blood on the Tracks is Oshimi's best work yet, and this is saying a lot because he's created many series that I love. It's a fast and effective read that features a horror that's quiet yet so loud at the same time, it will make your skin crawl. If you're like me and think that series don't always have to be outwardly scary to be thought of as one of the scariest manga of all time, you'll want to check out Blood on the Tracks. There's a sense of realism to this one that makes it, in my opinion, one of the most disturbing to ever be released. Gaunt's is a roller coaster of emotions, blending sci fi with elements of horror that will have you gripping the edge of your seat. The story revolves around Kei Kurino and Masaru Kato, who, after a tragic accident, find themselves in a macabre game of hunting aliens in futuristic gear. The result is bloody, gory confrontations that are shocking, dreadful, and thrilling. Gaunt's may not be inherently terrifying, but if you picture yourself in their shoes, it's one of the scariest situations. What sets Gaunt's apart isn't just its pulse pounding action or the unique designs, which are some of the best I've come across, by the way. It's the depth, the suspense, and the unexpected moments of emotion that are experienced amid the chaos. The art itself is next level. I felt as if I was a movie while reading. I could almost hear the explosions, the alien footsteps, and the sounds of their weapons. It's rare for a manga to immerse me in its world as much as Gaunt's does. Although there are times Gaunt's feels more like a hardcore action series, its horror undertones are ever present throughout the chapters. If you're looking for a visceral, cinematic experience in manga form, Gaunt's should be at the top of your list. For a more in-depth and spoiler-free review of Gaunt's and a look at the manga, you can also check out my full review on the channel if you still aren't convinced. Kazuo Umezu is one of the most important horror manga creators of all time. I recommend diving into all of his works, but The Drifting Classroom is the one I recommend most. It is similar to The Lord of the Flies, except much darker. The environment is just as important as the characters in this story, and Kazuo Umezu developed both extremely well. It's a survival story, but it takes place in a school, and the characters are all kids, which makes it all the more disturbing. There's a sense of camp to this one, too. The expressions of the kids, who look like they are always yelling, always makes me laugh. The story starts with the usual school shenanigans, but this all changes when things take a turn for the worse. When everything outside their school mysteriously disappears, these kids now find themselves fighting to survive in a terrifying desert wasteland. The Drifting Classroom is a horror classic, but it has elements of mystery and sci-fi that keep things interesting as well. Even though it's an older series that was first released in the 70s, it's one of those manga that never gets old because it's such a well-written and detailed story. He's also one of the creators that influenced Junji Ito. I am including a few hidden horror manga gems in this video, but Cannibal by Masaki Ninomiya is currently one of the most underrated manga in the horror genre. When we are first introduced to our main character, he has just moved to a remote village in the mountains with his family. But it's not just any ordinary village. It's one that's shrouded in a lot of mystery. More terrifyingly than that, it's a place where cannibals are rumored to reside. Everyone jokes about this at first, but when the local policeman goes missing and our MC is sent to take over his post, he begins to wonder whether or not these rumors are true and starts to investigate. The only problem is that one particular family in the area doesn't like him poking around in their business. It reminds me of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in a lot of ways because there's the townsfolk and then there's the main family, in this case the Goto family, that put the whole town in a state of unease. The townspeople acknowledge them, but they don't pry into their lives. It's a rather suspenseful but also scary read as a result, and it constantly puts you on edge. Through his interactions with the people in this town, but also the Goto family, you uncover this mystery alongside the MC and others. As far as scary manga panels go, this one features some pretty gruesome scenes that will chill you to the bone, but it's a mysterious and thrilling series also. Cannibal is being released with English translation by Ablaze. Brutal Satsujin Keisatsukan no Kokohaku is an extremely underrated series about a detective named Hiroki Don who will do anything, even the most unthinkable, to get revenge on criminals that slip through the cracks of the justice system. When all else fails, he is there to make sure they never hurt anyone else ever again, even if he must dirty his hands to do so. He has this eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth type mentality, but the people he kills are the absolute worst of the worst who live out their days, harming and taking the lives of others. It creates a sense of uncertainty within you as the reader. On one hand, you'll think they got what they deserved, while on the other hand, you find yourself questioning his methods as well as the joy he gets from killing them. In this way, he is very similar to characters like Light in Death Note or Dexter Morgan in Dexter, so if you enjoyed watching these series, you will enjoy Brutal. Due to the nature of the content in this story, it is very graphic. Seeing that many of you came here for horror, this is something that most likely isn't of concern, but it is more violent than most because of the brutal and unforgiving way in which Hiroki kills these criminals. On top of that, some gruesome murders happen in this series. That being said, it is the perfect horror manga if you're a fan of gore. The Summer Hikaru Died is one of the best new horror series I've read in a while. The story follows Yoshiki and Hikaru, childhood friends from a secluded village. But suddenly Hikaru changes as if something else has taken over him. It dives deep into Yoshiki's turmoil, grappling with the loss, and making a tough choice to hold on to this new Hikaru. As far as the setting goes, it's set in an unsettling village in the countryside, which makes it reminiscent of series like Higurashi. There's a palpable tension from hushed conversations to the uneasy atmosphere that exists in this town and the mountainous forests that surround it. There's a subtle yet unnerving horror to this town and the happenings within it that makes it hard to feel at ease while you're reading. As the village seems to spiral into madness, the story captures your attention not just because it's full of emotion, but because of its eerie and mysterious atmosphere as well. Our MC Hikaru is puzzling. There's an innocence to him which is contrasted by the potential danger that we as readers know he poses. It's partly a mystery, with each volume unveiling more to this story, which I love too. The story and emotions of the characters are expressed well, the art is beautiful, and it's the best new horror manga I've read to date. If you love mystery as well as supernatural horror, you'll want to give this one a shot. Yen Press is releasing the Summer Hikaru Dive with an English translation if you'd like to check it out. Higurashi When They Cry is another must-have in this video. It isn't just one of the best horror series, but it's one of the best mystery manga too. It's about a group of friends and their interactions with each other in a small village called Hinamizawa. They have fun together, but dark secrets are lurking beneath the surface that will change their lives as they know it for good. I enjoyed Higurashi because it has a lot of interesting elements in its story. I will say that it starts off feeling a lot like a slice of life, but it introduces some unexpected horrors as the story progresses. It is very psychological and it has supernatural elements as well, so there's a little bit of everything in this story. There are gripping plot twists, unexpected developments, and more. Higurashi When They Cry is a great horror series because its story is engrossing and mysterious. It starts with an idyllic setting, but things slowly start to unravel, and this is where the story gets even more interesting. If you're looking for a new horror story to read, Higurashi is one you'll definitely want to check out. If you're into visual novels, I also recommend that as well. Battle Royale is a classic death game series. It is a series that has inspired everything from film to video games as well as a genre. Death game series have increased drastically in popularity thanks to series like Netflix's Squid Game, but Battle Royale has been going strong since the early 2000s, and to me, it is the quintessential death game series. In this one, a class is chosen at random to be placed in a deserted area where they must kill each other to survive. In a class's graduation trip, they discover that they have been chosen to participate in a kill or be killed game called The Program. The series was released with English translation by Tokyopop and singles in the Ultimate editions, but they are both out of print. Battle Royale is one of the most thrilling, gory manga I've ever read, and the gore in this series is drawn with incredible detail. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, but the thing I love most about Battle Royale is that it gives its characters backstory. This is also the main reason why it shines so brightly in comparison to other survival manga. You see the best and worst of humanity in this series, and it's impactful as a result. If you have yet to check out the film directed by Kenji Fukasaku, I highly recommend it as well. It's one of my all-time favorite movies, so I had to shout it out. What I love so much about this next one, Frankenfran, apart from its absurd body horror, is its humor and how it perfectly blends comedy with horror. I love dark humor, as seen with other manga in this video like Dorohedoro. There's a cheekiness to these types of series that makes them as charming as they are mortifying. However, I will say that Frankenfran's humor is more so black than it is dark. While the humor is a bit of an acquired taste, the social commentary and the way it explores human nature make it well worth the read. Frankenfran is about a girl named Fran, a soft-hearted patchwork girl created by the notorious Dr. Madaraki, who loves nothing more than helping others. But her idea of help might not be the same as everyone else's. Even when her experiments go according to plan, they often have unanticipated consequences. Playing with life and death can be a messy business. Whether in her lab or making house calls, you can always expect the unexpected with Fran. Frankenfran may be shocking at times, but it's full of heart as well. It's one of the best black comedies I've read to date. I know the reviews for this one, which are quite polarizing, scare some people off from checking it out, but I hope more people will give it a shot and see what they think about the series themselves. Jagan by Muneyuki Kaneshiro and Kensuke Nishida is an unforgettable sci-fi horror manga. You might know Muneyuki Kaneshiro from his other series Blue Lock. While I'd love to see all of their titles be released with English translation, it's Jagan that I'd love to see most. On the surface, it's easy to compare Jagan to other manga like Gantz and Parasite, but as you dive deep into the series, its unique voice surfaces. Both these series have protagonists who are affected by parasites. In Jagan, creatures called frenzy frogs morph their hosts into manifestations of their most profound desires, dubbing them fractured humans. Their gruesome transformation, paired with Jagan's penchant for violence, makes it an edge-of-the-seat read, which makes it similar in the vein of series like Gantz. From the detailed character designs to their lifelike expressions, each panel feels alive and in motion. The fractured humans in particular are both haunting and intriguing, visually representing the host's innermost desires. The art reminds me a lot of the detailed panels you see in series like I Am a Hero and Gantz, so it's visually striking to say the least. Unfortunately, Jagan has yet to be translated into English, but I hope it is soon. Next is Alice in Borderland by Haru Aso, and is one of the best death game manga out there. The story is set in a post apocalyptic type world where a life changing game called Borderland forces players to fight for their survival. It hones in on what people would do in situations where almost all they can think about is how to stay alive. What truly drew me in, though, was a series' diverse cast of characters. They come from all walks of life, and watching them grapple with their grim reality is both heartbreaking and relatable. They're not just characters in a story, they feel like real people trying to navigate an unimaginably tough situation. Every time a new game starts, there's this palpable tension. Neither the characters nor us as readers have a clue about what's going to happen next, which makes it unpredictable. Like any good survival story, Alice in Borderland isn't just about the art of survival. It delves deep, making you ponder life, its value, and the lengths we go to find purpose. Out of all the death game manga I've read, it's one of the most unique. It's not just full of thrills and suspense, it's also a journey of introspection and growth. If you like series like Battle Royale or Future Diary, I highly recommend giving this one a read. Dragonhead is one that deserves more attention than it gets because it expertly conveys humans' deep-seated fear of the unknown. Following a catastrophic train accident in a gloomy tunnel, three students are plunged into profound darkness, both real and psychological. Their goal is to escape the tunnel, but there's more to the series than meets the eye as it explores their unraveling sanity, but that is just scratching the surface because there's a fair amount of mystery to this one. What sets Dragonhead apart is its masterful exploration of the human psyche under extreme duress and its breakdown of societal constructs. The raw visuals add even more to this series. If a deep psychological horror manga is what you are looking for, Dragonhead is a must-read. Dragonhead was released by Tokyo Pop a long time ago, but it has yet to be reprinted in English. I really hope this changes soon because it's truly incredible. These next two are manhwa, but I had to include them. Killing Stalking is a deep dive into the dark corners of obsession and manipulation. The story follows our main character who becomes dangerously infatuated with someone he believes is his savior from a traumatic incident. But when he takes that obsession too far and breaks into this man's home, he's thrown into a nightmarish world. It turns out he's stumbled upon a sadistic serial killer who not only captures him, but also ensnares him in a disturbingly toxic relationship. Beyond its chilling plot, the strength of Killing Stalking lies in its deep psychological interplay between the main characters. It's intense, gripping, and not for the faint-hearted given its mature and potentially triggering themes. But if you're a fan of intricate horror and psychological thrillers, it's one I highly recommend. You can collect the series now via the Killing Stalking Deluxe Editions released by 7 Seas. Next, I want to talk about Bastard. In Bastard, the story of Jin's son unfolds in a way that's both compelling and chilling. He's a boy living under the shadow of his father who to the outside world is the epitome of kindness. But once you step inside their home, the facade fades, revealing a man capable of unthinkable horrors. It's not just the acts themselves that send shivers down your spine, it's the unnerving way Jin's father can seamlessly transition between the neighbor's charitable guy and a cold-blooded murderer. This one leans more into the psychological side of things, so it messes with your head as you read it, and there's a wickedness to his father that feels just all too real as well, especially since this one is rooted in reality rather than fantasy. The boogeyman in this one isn't a supernatural monster, it's a father, a son, and the guy next door, and it's highly effective as a result. I've read a lot of manhwa over the years, but Bastard remains a standout and it's one of the best. Here's hoping it's printed in English soon. If you like Bastard, I also want to recommend Sweet Home, which is written by Carnaby Kin as well if you have yet to check it out. I have so many other horror series that I love, so I will most likely be doing a part 2, but some quick notable mentions that I also enjoy and highly recommend. Of course, if you are diving into horror manga, Junji Ito is a great creator to get into. He's one of the most well-known, so I only included my favorite series of his Uzumaki in this video, but he has many more series to dive into if you like his works like Tomi, Gyo, short story collections, and more. To me, he's like the Stephen King of horror manga. You can't have a list without him, but I also wanted to showcase more amazing horror creators as well. If you enjoy unique zombie stories, I recommend Fort of Apocalypse, I Am a Hero, and Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead. If you like vampire stories that are also full of action, gore, and intrigue, Hellsing. The Voynich Hotel by Doman Saman is another I recommend picking up. It's not your run-of-the-mill read. It's darkly comedic and uniquely dives into the supernatural, somewhat akin to something like The Twilight Zone. High-Rise Invasion combines suspense, anxiety-inducing situations, and a cast of fascinating characters with cool mask designs. High School of the Dead perfectly encapsulates everything I love about B-horror zombie movies, and it is an HE. Sakurai as well, but it is unique given that it is a zombie romance series. August 9th, I Will Be Eaten by You by Tomomi is about a guy named Sakurai that's being stalked by monsters who disguise themselves as beautiful women. The first monster you'll meet looks like a human centipede, so you can only imagine what's in store for you with the rest of this story. The Kurosagi Corpse Delivery Service is an extremely underrated manga that follows the adventures of five young Buddhist students as they go about their days working in an unusual trade. The premise features main characters with supernatural abilities that use their powers to help the dead move on to the next life. What's most surprising about this series is that despite its dark subject matter, it manages to feel light and fun thanks to its quirky characters and black humor. Miruko-chan has some of the best monster designs I've seen, and it follows Miko, a normal girl who sees ghosts everywhere she looks, but her friends and family are oblivious to them. It's quite hilarious, but it's horrifying as well. I also want to recommend Creature by Shingo Honda. There's everything from government conspiracies to kaiju-esque creatures in this one, so in addition to a lot of carnage, there's a lot of mystery in this series too. The monster designs are some of the best I've seen, the artwork is extremely detailed, and the battles are epic. If a mystery manga with horror themes that is set in a gothic setting and is full of mystery and suspense sounds interesting to you, I recommend checking out Shadow's House. The story starts off innocent enough and adorable at first as it follows a living doll as she attends to a shadow named Kate, but things take a turn and is deceptively dark. As you get further into the story, it becomes more twisted and creepy than expected, so the horror elements don't kick in until later on. If you're looking to enter a strange and panic-inducing world, Bibliomania by Michiru Obaru is a must-read. With some of the most terrifying visions I've seen in manga, this one is up with the likes of Blom and its Silicon Life. With meticulous detail and a unique style, Bibliomania is one of the most visually striking horror manga I've read. If you're looking for a slasher manga that's an absolute gorefest, you'll want to check out Pumpkin Night. On top of having a deranged serial killer that uses witty, funny lines that are familiar to series I love like Scream, it has some of the most graphic, highly detailed gore, and best artwork I've seen in horror. If you are looking for a series that has action, drama, and high-stakes survival situation and odd creatures, Biomeat Nectar has this all and so much more. It's more so a survival manga than anything, but it also has its roots in horror. This next mentioned, Starving Anonymous, dives into humanity's excessive as well as gluttonous need for things, as well as our inability to look at the effects of our actions, especially when it comes to the food industry. It has some of the most effective and truly disturbing panels. If you're looking for a terrifying manga that has creepy monster designs, check out Jinmin. The monsters in that are absolutely mortifying. Interested in a story about gang warfare and a twisted killer? Check out Ichi the Killer, which inspired the film by Takashi Miike. Would rather pick up a collection of short stories instead of a full series? PTSD Radio is the series I'd recommend. Like Cosmic Horror, At the Mountains of Madness, or any of the adaptations by Go Tanabe. I actually just did a video showcasing the new deluxe edition of Mountains of Madness if you'd like to learn more about the series. And finally, if you're looking for a shonen that has horror-like themes, check out Claymore, Hell's Paradise Jigo Karaku, Chainsaw Man, The Promised Neverland, Attack on Titan, Dark Gathering, Dandadan, or Jujutsu Kaisen. Man, I think that's it, but probably not. Horror is one of my favorite genres, so I know there's so much more I can talk about, but I will of course be talking about more horror series I love on the channel in the future. What are your favorite horror series? Let me know. I'm always looking for more recommendations. That's it for the video, guys. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you all next time.